Jujutsu Kaisen Phantom Parade, a mobile phone game released in November of 2024, offering a gacha gameplay loop of turn-based combat, levels, and character progression. The hope of the game was to have players engage on a deeper level with the Jujutsu Kaisen cast, as well as provide an interactive story experience that the audience wouldn't receive anywhere else. Because this original story, which is actually officially canon and worked on by series creator Gege Akutami themselves, is locked behind a gacha game, many Jujutsu Kaisen fans are completely missing out on what is, in my opinion, an amazing and fully fleshed out narrative to the series we all know and love. There's also plenty of special story elements of Jujutsu Kaisen explored in Phantom Parade that you can't get anywhere else, such as what happens when a binding vow gets broken, or how the villains get the idea to construct such a complicated barrier for the Shibuya incident in the first place. We'll be exploring all of those fun lore drops, as well as the in-depth and unique character interactions you can only get in Phantom Parade, and more, all here in this video. So hit that like button, grab a snack, and get comfortable, because if you're a Jujutsu Kaisen fan, you are going to want to experience this story. But first, a word from this video's sponsor, GamerSupps. Listen, if you need an energy drink that's gonna keep you going throughout the day while also not making you crash, and at the same time it's giving you a bunch of vitamins like C, D, and even some nootropics to keep you energized, that's GamerSupps for you. The reason why they're super cool is because not only if you've never tried them before, they'll give you a free sample if you use my code NOOP, they'll also just give you 10% off your order if you use the code anyway. Try some flavors from your favorite anime like JoJo's or Darling in the Franxx. Again, use my link in the description or code NOOP for 10% off your order, or if you're a new customer, go get some free samples on me and I guarantee you'll be buying some more. Thank you GamerSupps for sponsoring the channel. Also, real quick before we begin, if you'd be interested at all in seeing my blind reaction to any of this story, as well as going through the cutscenes and gameplay as you're supposed to experience it, feel free to check out the gaming channel No Operator Live, where you'll be able to see all of the chapters of my Phantom Parade playthrough uploaded consistently with the story video release, as the first 4 chapters are already uploaded and ready to watch. And without further ado, thank you so much for watching, and let's get right into Phantom Parade. Our story begins just a few days before the Goodwill Exchange event, a sorcerer exam held between the Jujutsu High's Kyoto and Tokyo schools. While making preparations for the event, Principal Masamichi Yaga receives a phone call and is surprised to hear that it's an old friend on the other line. The person on the phone asks Yaga how the exchange event is shaping out, and Yaga wishes that he would have had the time to invite his friend's students as well. This old friend of Yaga's says while he would have loved to have had the chance to meet Sukuna's vessel, Itadori Yuji, in person, currently he and his students have their own problems beginning to stir on their home turf, saying that what's most important is Yaga making sure the exchange event goes smoothly, as if the situation continues, he might have to ask Yaga for help. A couple days later, after the chaos of the Goodwill event is handled, we're introduced to a mysterious curse spirit that we've never met before, surveying the ruins of the exchange event from the shadows. The curse spirit mentions how it originally believed it would have had to alter its grand plans based on the existence of Sukuna's vessel. But after watching the exchange event unfold, the mysterious curse believes that they can actually use Yuji to their advantage. The scene fading to black as the curse wanders off, revealing that it's almost time for everything to begin. Meanwhile, fully healed up from their battles at the exchange event, the trio of first years at Tokyo Jujutsu High, Itadori Yuji, Kugisaki Nobara, and Fushiguro Megami are all assembling at the front of an abandoned elementary school for an exorcism. After receiving a phone call from their teacher Satoru Gojo, he instructs the students to place a bunch of curse amulets around the school to ward off curse spirits that are flocking to the area. Ijichi places down a veil, and the sorcerers begin their mission. But after a short search around the school, they immediately notice that most of the curse spirits have already been exorcised, leaving behind nothing but residuals, putting Megami on alert, as this means a curse user could be involved. They hear a loud boom down the hallway, and as the three investigate, they are introduced to a blonde teenage girl about their age, dressed in an old-school sailor's uniform, cursed talismans wrapped around her fists. The trio have absolutely no idea who this person is, and are immediately on guard because Megami can tell from one glance she's an experienced sorcerer. However, to make things even more confusing, when the unknown girl notices them, she immediately knows who they are, saying it's about time the Tokyo students showed themselves. After finding out which of the 3 students is Itadori, the mysterious woman declares to everyone present that she vows to become more famous than Yuji Yuji ever is, which, as someone set for execution, comes off as extremely weird and out of touch. But the trio doesn't have much time to think about any of this, as the girl immediately runs off again, announcing she's going to prove her superiority to the Tokyo students by exercising more curses than they can. The trio decides that they should simply complete their mission. However, it becomes impossible to ignore the woman's presence when her constant battling is not only attracting more curses to the area, but also severely damaging the already dilapidated building. Finding the girl again, she is clearly being overwhelmed by the number of curses she's fighting, and Yuji jumps in to help, only to get attacked himself and told to stay out of the way, as she refuses to give up until she proves herself stronger than the famous Itadori Yuji. After the last of the curses are finished up, the woman finally introduces herself as Saki Rindo, a first-year student at Jujutsu High Fukuoka branch. Everyone is rightfully confused, as they thought there were only 2 schools for Jujutsu in the country, and after calling to confirm with Ijichi, the attendant tells the trio to come back to headquarters and bring Saki Rindo with them, as Fukuoka's principal is there, waiting for her. The 4 students arrive back at Jujutsu High, and Gojo introduces the trio to Kensuke Nagino, the official principal of Fukuoka branch, and the old friend that Yaga was on the phone with in the introduction. Upon meeting Nagino, the man instantly takes a liking to Yuji, saying that he idolized Itadori from afar ever since he heard Yuji's story, claiming the fact Yuji's able to maintain his sanity while having the King of Curses sealed within him is impressive. And Nagino has a passion for students with great potential, which kinda makes it obvious how Rindo came to misunderstand Yuji's situation. Nagino confirms Fukuoka is indeed a real branch of Jujutsu High, only due to its small size, it's only officially recognized as a subsection under Tokyo. Nagino gets right to the point and explains he's here to ask for their help, as recently the surrounding area of Fukuoka, Kyushu, has become plagued by a massive cursed energy. But because the area is mostly rural and less populated, there isn't really much of an explanation as to why there's been a sudden uptick in curse activity. Kyushu doesn't have enough sorcerers of its own to handle the increasing threat, and Gojo elects his 3 students to accompany Saki Rindo back to Fukuoka tomorrow and help investigate. Nagino tells the first years that while they're there, his 2 students will be able to show them around, and just before Yuji walks out, Nagino stops him, letting Yuji know that he's personally excited to see how Sukuna's vessel is able to influence the students of Fukuoka. The next day, everyone arrives in Kyushu, and despite Saki Rindo being told to bring the Tokyo students back to Fukuoka with her, she gives them terrible directions and leaves the trio completely stranded on their own to derail their investigation. Thankfully though, a new face introduces themselves and offers to help bring them to campus. This boy is named Kaito Yuki, and he's the other first year currently attending Fukuoka High. Yuki is annoyed that Saki would disobey Nagino's orders so casually, and as the 4 sorcerers share introductions, Yuki actually cuts Itadori off before he can tell Yuki his name, coldly telling Yuji that no introductions are necessary, and Yuki is more than aware of who Yuji is. Reading aloud the tenets of sorcery law, Kaito Yuki wastes no time reminding Yuji that he is scheduled for execution and has no right to exist under Jujutsu code. Nobara and Megami ask Yuki if they're going to have a problem, attempting to stand up for their friend, but Yuki reassures them he means no harm to Yuji, revealing that Nagino ordered Yuki to spare Yuji's life, and sorcery law also dictates that students must obey their superiors. Yuji wonders to himself about how these 2 laws kind of contradict themselves, but Yuki claims in order to reconcile with this, Yuki's decided to neither harm nor befriend Yuji, simply choosing to ignore him and hate Yuji from afar, even if it causes inconveniences to the mission. Just before Yuki can lead the trio to campus though, he receives a call from Rindo, who explains that on the way back, she encountered a curse spirit that was running around in broad daylight. Saki tells Yuki she's going to try and chase it into a safer location, and she wants him to meet her there without the Tokyo students so they can prove they don't need their help. Understanding the danger though, Yuki does bring the Tokyo students along with him, and the sorcerers meet up with Saki just before she enters an abandoned building that the curse escaped into. Yuji admits he's glad they came, as the curse appeared to be much more powerful than someone like Rindo could have handled on her own, but Rindo says she doesn't care about that, and runs full speed into the building on her own, telling Yuki to close the barrier behind her. Yuki doesn't stop the Tokyo Tokyo students though. In fact, he admits he actually wants them to help Rindo because he's worried about her state of mind. Unfortunately, Yuki himself is only a support type sorcerer, so he has no choice but to ask the Tokyo students for assistance. Yuki explains his curse technique works similarly to a veil, so he can close the area off for them once they run in. But before they do, Yuki stops Nobara and says he can't force them to sympathize with Rindo, but he at least wants to explain why she's been acting so reckless lately, revealing that Fukuoka branch was just recently scheduled to be disbanded due to its size not justifying the amount of resources spent on keeping it afloat. Rindo's gotten it into her head that if she's able to prove Fukuoka's strength to the higher ups, they'll have no choice but to keep Fukuoka branch active. Nobara kind of coldly admits that none of that is her problem, and it doesn't excuse Rindo's behavior, but Yuki admits he was just hoping this would make Tokyo more likely to help her. Nobara corrects Yuki though, telling him that the students would have helped Rindo whether she had a good reason to do this or not because she wants to help her, but because Nobara wants to set Rindo straight for pissing her off. Deep inside the abandoned building, Saki finally manages to corner the rogue curse spirit, a gross pink Temu version of Kid Buu that no matter how hard Saki fights against, keeps getting the upper hand against her. However, Saki reveals that this was all a part of her plan, activating her curse technique, Catastrophe Reversal Curse, an ability that converts all of the pain Saki Rindo receives into cursed energy, resulting in Saki dealing more damage the more damage she takes. Rindo exercises the curse spirit with her technique's power, but suddenly from the shadows, the curse reforms itself and strikes a critical blow back on the Fukuoka student, revealing that even though Rindo can convert pain into energy, her injuries don't heal and can still affect her stamina. Just before the curse is able to land a killing blow, Yuji counterattacks and the Tokyo trio rescue Rindo, much to her disappointment. She attempts to get in the Tokyo student's way again, but Nobara straight up knocks Saki Rindo upside the head, sending her flying towards the ground. Yuji and Megumi are surprised, but Nobara takes charge of the situation, commanding Yuji and Megumi to hold off the lesser curses while she talks with Rindo. Saki attempts to get angry at Nobara, but Kukusaki cuts her off, saying that if Rindo wants to fight, that's no problem with Nobara. But what Nobara won't stand for is the desperate attempts to be the hero that are only going to end up getting Rindo killed. Nobara asks if Fukuoka branch staying active is really worth losing her life over, and surprisingly, Rindo says it is, without hesitation. Saki says the teacher that saved her life is more than worth anything she can do, saying she wants to live life the way she wants, working under the man who adopted her, and refuses to let fate tell her where she should be. Something that resonates with Nobara, who remembers the words she told to Yuji all the way back when they first met, realizing that Rindo's more like Nobara than she originally thought. She picks Rindo off the ground and tells her they're going to exercise that curse together, but Nobara will play support and let Rindo take center stage, so that way she keeps all the exorcism credit. Rindo is dumbfounded at first, but agrees and explains how her curse technique works, allowing the two sorcerers to effectively cooperate and exercise the curse for good. In the heat of battle, Saki is impressed by Nobara's tenacity, which gives Rindo the motivation to carry on, despite her body beginning to give out. Rindo asks why Nobara would do something so nice for her, and while Nobara admits she wanted to kick Rindo's ass at first, Nobara would have been a hypocrite if she didn't help another woman trying to live for herself. Everyone exits the building safe and sound, making Yuki happy to see everyone return and the curse get exorcised. And weirdly enough, Saki Rindo has now developed a fascination with Nobara, idolizing her and referring to her now as Sister Bara, almost too similar to a relationship another character has with Yuji, who we'll be getting to shortly. Meanwhile though, Megumi remained in the abandoned building alone to continue his investigation, finding it very weird that a curse was out in broad daylight and would bring them back to such a random place, almost as if this curse had lured them all here intentionally. For what reason, however, Megumi can't be sure of yet. The next day, they report everything that happened to Nagino, and talking with Ijichi, everyone agrees that not only was the entire situation abnormal, the fact that a curse was able to disintegrate and then reassemble itself is the weirdest part of all. With no major events or other negative energies influencing the area, nothing adds up as to why curses have become so rampant in Kyushu lately, making Yuji wonder out loud that, is all of this really a coincidence, or is someone plotting something darker behind the scenes? Megumi wants to get a head start start investigating again. But Nagino tells him they're not allowed to interfere with Fukuoka's investigation, and they're only here in case they need backup for battle, telling the Tokyo students to remain on standby for now, providing them full accommodations and a place to stay so they're completely at home and relaxed while they wait. The next morning, Yuji immediately feels weird about sitting around not doing anything, and Nagino stumbles upon him, asking Yuji if he's bored, telling the Tokyo student to go find Kaito Yuki and help him train, since his Fukuoka students rarely get the chance to gain experience with other sorcerers their age. Yuji's hesitant because of how Yuki feels about him, but Nagino insists, telling Yuji to explain to Yuki that it's Nagino's orders to do so. In the meantime, Nagino says he'll be off to perform solo work in a nearby area called Oita, thinking that Yuji and Yuki will become great friends in no time after they get to know each other. Finding Yuki training alone in a field, Yuji overhears Yuki frustratingly shouting to himself about not being any help in the fight against the curses. Yuki is immediately annoyed at Yuji's presence and at first tries to reject his offer to train until, of course, Yuki finds out it was a direct sorcerer order. While Yuki's still hesitant, he thinks this is the perfect opportunity to get experience exercising Yuji when the time finally comes. Much to Yuji's annoyance, the two actually make great progress in their training, as Yuki uses a cursed dagger in close quarters combat, and Yuji's able to relate to this due to his short time using Slaughter Demon, the cursed knife lent to him by Gojo. Yuki's actually very appreciative of the tips due to neither Nagino or Rindo being experts in curse tools, so it's rare he's actually able to learn anything in that field, describing himself as only kind of a Jujutsu sorcerer, which prompts Yuji to ask what Kaito Yuki means by that, as Yuki seems like a proper Jujutsu sorcerer to him. But before they can go any deeper into it, Yuki gets extremely angry that Sukuna's vessel would try and deceive Yuki into some kind of friendly conversation, claiming that the entire time they were training, Yuki was just actually trying to kill Itadori so that way he could follow Jujutsu law and frame this death as some kind of training accident, which honestly just makes Yuki think it's funny how much harder Yuki makes life for himself by trying so hard to follow the rules. When Yuji and Yuki finish their training, the two sorcerers meet up with Rindo and Nobara for some tourism, shopping, and food, while Fushiguro sneaks out on his own in order to launch a solo investigation, as there was something he needed to be sure of, and it just wouldn't stop bothering him. He heads back to the abandoned building from yesterday, and the place is surprisingly still infested with curses. Since Megumi confirmed Ichichi's report himself by asking around town, he really does not understand why this many high-grade curses would spawn so frequently in such a boring area. Almost certain that the students were lured here for some specific purpose now, the residuals Megumi followed end up stretching off into multiple different directions, and the exploration becomes too complicated for one person to handle, deciding to call it a day and return to the investigation later. Back with the other sorcerers in Tenjin, over Hot Pot, Nobara finally decides to ask what's so special about Fukuoka that would make Saki Rindo fight so hard. And Rindo reveals that she actually used to be a pretty big delinquent in the area, essentially running her own gang and getting into fights constantly. At the time, no one could beat Saki, and she wonders now if the reason for that was because she was subconsciously using cursed energy. However, this reputation ended up backfiring, as one day, Rindo was jumped and had her skull cracked open with a metal bat, getting put into a coma for weeks, but miraculously surviving. From that moment on though, Rindo was able to see curse spirits. Not knowing how to cope with the ability to see things no one else could, Rindo resorted to fighting cursed spirits by her lonesome and ended up making the exact same mistakes as before, almost getting killed by a swarm of curses before Principal Nagino happened upon and rescued her. From that moment on, Nagino basically adopted Rindo, taking her into Fukuoka High and raising her as a Jujutsu sorcerer. Kaito Yuki admits he also has a similar story, although it isn't nearly as exciting or interesting, claiming he's not from a sorcerer clan, nor did he have some kind of resulted in him being able to see the paranormal. One day, Yuki just woke up and his curse technique just came to him. And from then on, just like Rindo, Yuki would be stalked by curses, choosing to hole himself up inside of his room and refusing to leave or come outside. Until one day, all of the curses just disappeared, Principal Nagino having been the one to exorcise and remove them from Yuki's home. After that day, Yuki came to Fukuoka of his own accord and asked to be taught how to use his powers under the tutelage of Nagino, clearing up why both sorcerers sorcerers would be so devoted to their principal. Rindo and Yuki admit they could have left Fukuoka at any time. In fact, Kyoto School has made numerous bids for their transfer after Fukuoka finally disbands. Nobara is disgusted at the thought of this though, telling the two of them that no matter what they do, Rindo and Yuki can never go to Kyoto with all those weird and sinister people. And as if summoning the devil himself, Mai Zenin, Momo Nishimiya, and Miwa Kasumi all arrive at the Tenjin Hot Pot restaurant, having heard every word Nobara said behind their backs. Mai thinks, out loud at least, that talking shit about people when they're not around is the weirdest and most sinister thing to do of all, immediately drawing Nobara into an argument with both Mai and Momo, while Miwa just wants to stay neutral. The Kyoto group reveal that they've also been recruited to help with the Fukuoka situation, Mai slyly remarking it's because Tokyo School can't be relied on to properly clean up the mess. This, of course, gets right under Nobara and Saki Rindo's skin, who are beyond fired up and pushing the boys out of the dorm the next day to get a head start on the investigation over the Kyoto girls. The team check in with Fushiguro and find out what he managed to learn on his own search, Megami providing them the coordinates to a couple of curse residuals that might lead them to more clues. Unfortunately though, after a whole day of looking, the group turn up with nothing. Following the last trail of residuals to another dead end, Yuki wonders if the trail has gone cold, but like clockwork, suddenly the entire area around them darkens and transforms, revealing the exact same curse spirit from the abandoned building yesterday, prompting everyone to be even more confused, especially since Saki and Nobara made sure to double check their work after the first fake out death. Once again though, the students find themselves lured right into a trap, as chasing the curse gets them transported right into an innate domain. Similar to the juvenile detention center when the Tokyo trio encountered the finger bearer, all 5 students are lost in the depths of some mysterious curse's pocket dimension. With no other choice, knowing they've been had, the group venture further into the innate domain in hopes of locating an exit. Making their way deeper into the territory, they randomly stumble upon the group of girls from Kyoto, who for some reason have also ended up stuck inside this curse spirit's trap. The Kyoto students explain they were hot on the trail of a suspected curse, when all of a sudden the environment changed shape. Everyone is confused how they could possibly end up in the same domain if they were chasing different curses, prompting Mai and Momo to start an argument over Tokyo trying to steal the credit of their exorcism. But in that moment, 2 completely identical curses make themselves known. The same dollar store kid boos from earlier, immediately proving that everyone was telling the truth. At that same time though, a hole opens up beneath Yuji and Kaito Yuki, transporting the two of them to a different location of the domain, leaving the 4 girls to fend for themselves against a growing horde of curses. Elsewhere in the domain, Yuji comes to and calls out for Yuki, who is also okay thankfully. As the two start to get surrounded by more of the identical curses as before, both Yuji and Yuki realize they're dealing with much more intelligent enemies than they first thought. They do their best to battle the seemingly endless stream of curses, but because Yuki is exhausted and only able to play support, Yuji finds himself spending more time defending the Fukuoka student than fighting back. Yuki apologizes for being a burden, admitting it's extremely embarrassing that he needs to be rescued by the person he spent the last week dehumanizing, making Yuki question why he even became a Jujutsu sorcerer in the first place. He can't even follow Jujutsu law, let alone fight against curses. But as Yuki watches Itadori continue to fearlessly stand against the enemy, Yuki begins to find his resolve. And as a group of curses slip past Yuji, Yuki instantly remembers the lesson that Yuji taught him earlier, admitting to himself that even though it came from Yuji, hearing Itadori tell Yuki that he was a full-fledged sorcerer made Yuki happy, declaring to the world that he is a Jujutsu sorcerer, using the training he received from Yuji to overcome the curses and exorcise them himself. Without wasting any time, Yuki tells Yuji that he's sorry for not having any time to explain, but he needs Yuji to accept his curse. And much to Yuki's surprise, despite the awful way Yuki treated him, without hesitation, Yuji says he will, placing an obscene amount of trust in Yuki that he probably doesn't deserve. And then Yuki activates his ability, Curse Technique Boost, Night Hunt, a curse barrier that Yuki casts on his allies that significantly buff their cursed energy output, in exchange for a binding vow that forces the ally into combat against an enemy of Yuki's choosing, rejuvenating Yuji of his stamina and boosting every stat. While Kaito Yuki is able to hold off the minions, Yuji's able to completely decimate the main curse spirit on his own. And as Yuki watches Itadori soar, more, he finally begins to acknowledge Yuji for who he is, realizing that whatever Yuji's been through, it must have been extremely worse than anything Yuki's endured. Yuki's ashamed to admit that if Yuji wasn't present, he probably would have died in this domain. But Yuji tries to cheer Yuki up, telling him that he wouldn't have been able to beat the main boss either if Yuki didn't support him. As they set off to find their friends, Yuki clarifies that he will still never be able to accept Sukuna's vessel as a friend. However, when it comes to Itadori Yuji, the Jujutsu sorcerer, Yuki has no choice but to recognize him as an ally, something that makes Yuji smile. Meanwhile, the five girls are having a tough time cooperating in their group battle, as despite everyone's efforts, they still haven't accomplished anything and are too busy bickering to finish off their foes. Itadori and Kaito Yuki show up in the middle of all of this, offering to join the battle and help, but their interruption immediately disrupts the girls' hostility. The girls all turn their anger on the boys, and Nobara wonders aloud why in the hell they should let the guys take all of the credit, admitting that would be worse than losing to Kyoto, while Mai, surprisingly, says she's never agreed with Nobara more. And in no time at all, once the girls are all able to cooperate effectively, the cursed spirits stand no chance, all of them creating the perfect chemical reaction that ends up with them exercising the last boss in one big ultimate team attack, making Yuji ask if that's really all it took for the girls to do their jobs. As the domain's barrier shatters and no curses remain, both Tokyo and Kyoto disperse, going their separate ways after ending up in another argument directly after they eliminated the threat. Nobara and Rindo declare they're tired and stomp off, leaving Yuji and Yuki to run off trying to catch up with them, while the Kyoto girls head back to report the situation to their principal. Once everyone's left though, the mysterious curse spirit from before shows themselves, clearly watching the scene unfold from the background once again. The curse mentions, albeit cryptically, that after being able to observe all of the talent available, no sorcerers in either Tokyo or Kyoto interest him. That is, except for one, as the camera cuts to show Megami, who was on his own investigation, just finishing off the exorcism of, surprise surprise, the exact same identical curse as everyone else did. With the mastermind revealed, to us at least, the mysterious curse laughs to itself, claiming that it can't wait to have Megami's power all to itself. The next day, everyone is finally able to reconvene after their experiences. Yuji, Nobara, and Megami put their heads together to try and understand exactly what could be going on, considering it's way too strange to be a coincidence that 4 identical curses would exist separate from one another. Megami hypothesizes there must be someone deliberately creating curses and spreading them around Kyushu, and Nobara wonders if that's even possible, but Megami admits what other explanation could there be. At the same time, Ichichi arrives and announces an emergency. Apparently, while investigating in Oita, Principal Nagino encountered and was severely injured by a special grade curse. With Nagino in a coma and his condition unstable, everyone heads to Oita in order to check on his status. And since no one was with Nagino when the attack happened, it's impossible to find out anything about what happened or even ask questions, leaving everyone entirely in the dark of what to do next. However, in a blind rage, Rindo yells that none of that matters and she'll just keep beating up curses in Oita until she comes across a special grade, rushing off with no real direction, making Nobara follow her, despite Ichichi trying to stop them. With no reinforcements available, Yuji and Megami decide that it's up to them to discover who attacked Nagino. Kaito Yuki is in disbelief that 2 mere students would be thinking about confronting a special grade, but Yuji admits they're still Jujutsu sorcerers, high school students or not. Ichichi knows that he can't force them to stay here, asking that at the very least, if they do find the special grade, to wait for a plan before charging into battle. As the 3 of them return to the location that Nagino was supposedly attacked at, Yuji and Megami think it's weird there's no signs of a struggle. With the only thing they can do be follow the residuals, Megami splits up from Yuji and Yuki so the 2 groups can cover more ground. Sometime later, neither Yuji and Yuki or Megami have found anything of note in their search, feeling like the trail of residuals is just leading them further and further away from each other. Deciding to call it a day, just like what happened before, Megami is immediately surrounded by a dark aura, finding himself transported to the innate domain from the other day. The phone line cuts out, and Yuji instantly picks up that Fushiguro encountered danger, him and Yuki making their way full speed back to Fushiguro's location. Meanwhile, genuinely feeling relieved that the evidence came to him instead of the other way around, Megami's just glad he doesn't have to call this a wasted day, preparing for battle as he gets surrounded by curses. Realizing he's now looking at countless replicas of the same Kid Buu curse spirit, wondering if there's any actual end to them, when suddenly all of the minion curses begin to kneel, revealing a larger, more developed curse that seemingly is the leader of the pack. The leader motions to Megami, calling him out by first and last name, which surprises the sorcerer, wondering if this is the special grade that attacked Nagino. As all of the minions descend onto Megami, the curse asks Megami to show him his true power. No matter how many times Megami is about to be killed by the minions though, they seem to pull away just before making the finishing blow, prompting Megami to wonder if all of this is just one big test for the leader to observe his skills. Just then, Itadori and Yuki break through the crowd of minions, distracting the group long enough for Fushiguro to focus on the leader of the pack. As the two of them fight towards Megami's side, Fushiguro decides to stop holding back, releasing Nue's thunder waves to shock and stun the curse leader. And as they finally gain the upper hand, Megami begins to feel uneasy, as if all of this is going too well, but decides to push past that, attempting to escape with Yuji and Yuki. But before he can, two words echo throughout the entire territory.
Domain expansion.
Engulfed in a second domain of pure red, Megami finds himself face to face with a mysterious curse that has been watching everything from afar. The curse laughs, welcoming Megami into his domain. Meanwhile, as Yuji plans to break the domain open from the outside, the leader curse from before gets in his way, referring to the mysterious curse as its master, telling Yuji even if he could break the domain, it would never let him do that. Realizing that this is definitely the special grade they were looking for, not the curse from earlier, Megami instantly braces himself for whatever this domain's guaranteed hit might be. The curse tries to tell Megami there's no need to be on guard, since he's not trying to kill Megami, but Fushiguro claims he'll never trust a curse spirit. The mastermind admits that none of that really matters anyway, because its innate technique has already taken effect moments ago, making Megami confused, but suddenly he realizes his palm has begun bleeding, being struck with an extreme feeling of fatigue and falling to his knees. The sorcerer claiming he can feel his power literally being sapped away from him. The curse thanks Megami for delivering him this long-desired treasure, and the domain expansion instantly disperses. Yuji slides in to grab Megami and succeeds in putting some distance between the two parties, but when he asks Megami if he's okay, Fushiguro says he literally doesn't know, as he has no idea what's actually been done to him. From the other side of the domain, the mastermind tells them both not to worry, as all of this will be made clear very soon. The curse, previously thought to be the leader of the pack, kneels before the mastermind, calling this mysterious curse Lord Rosetsu, as Rosetsu, revealing samples of both Megami's blood and cursed energy, takes samples and imbues them directly into the curse's body. Within no time at all, the curse becomes consumed in a jet black surge of energy, corrupting its form into a more pronounced and unique shape, colored black and white to define its strength compared to the minions. And as the vessel rises, almost as if it was baptized, it thanks its master for its new power, never expecting the cursed energy would be such a great match. And as Rosetsu admits he's also impressed, he asks the curse to test out its new abilities on the students, surprising everyone as the vessel claps its hands and summons forth an exact replica of the divine dog totality Shikigami. As the sorcerers try to stand against the curse, it shows that it also has the power to summon Nue, the Thunderbird, crashing into Yuji and shocking him heavily with its electricity. Yuji curses at Rosetsu, demanding to know how it's fighting with Megami's techniques, and Rosetsu happily responds in order to gain an additional buff for explaining his powers. Once Rosetsu witnesses a cursed technique, by stealing the user's blood and cursed energy, and fulfilling these three conditions in no specific order, Rosetsu is able to create an exact replica of that person's technique, and by creating an empty vessel meant to hold all of that energy, Rosetsu can give birth to fully fledged beings capable of using those powers themselves. Rosetsu calls this ability Curse Technique Snatch. Very original, and he believes by stealing sorcerer's techniques and using them as his own, Rosetsu will be able to craft the ultimate work of art that surpasses all existence. Meanwhile, from within Yuji, a familiar dark aura stirs. From within Yuji's soul, Ryomen Sukuna is watching from his throne in disgust, calling this cursed spirit's methods boring. As the Ten Shadows curse overwhelms the three students, Megumi discovers he's now completely useless in battle due to not properly being able to gather his cursed energy. Meanwhile, amongst the chaos, Kaito Yuki is heavily injured by the cursed spirit's Nue, resulting in a situation where both Yuki and Megumi are incapacitated, leaving Yuji the only one left who can fight. Finally alone, Rosetsu wishes to take this opportunity to talk to Yuji about something, but Itadori refuses to listen, vowing to exorcise Rosetsu, even if it costs Yuji his life. This amuses Rosetsu, but the two are interrupted by a loud scream as Rindo and Nobara have finally entered the domain, managing to track the group down. Rindo demands to know if Rosetsu is the special grade responsible for injuring Nagino, and the sound of that name makes Rosetsu laugh uncontrollably, acting as if he was struggling to remember who it was at first, but then cutting the act, Rosetsu outright telling Rindo that Nagino is a boring sorcerer, a man so empty and so dull that he practically has nothing left worth to steal. No different from the Walking Dead itself. Hearing this sends Rindo into a blind rage, who charges at Rosetsu and leaves herself wide open, Rosetsu taking the advantage and one-shotting the Fukuoka student as quickly as she showed up, making Yuji realize that the two girls appearing has only made the situation worse, and if they don't find a way out soon, it's going to end up with all of them dead. At first, Rosetsu seems more than happy to exterminate some of the undesirables, but before the battle continues, something interrupts him, scoffing as he remarks he thought he had a little more time, claiming he'll have to end the show early today. And without any indication or warning, Rosetsu and the innate domain instantly disappear, leaving all of the students exactly where they were before being captured, with not a single curse or residual left in sight. Everyone is rightfully confused, and Yuji wonders if they were able to find a way to escape, but Megumi corrects Yuji, telling him they were simply let go. Everyone wants to head back and report what happened, however, Rindo is acting exceptionally defeated, feeling ashamed that she was looked down upon by the person who injured her mentor. Yuji says they need to head home while it's still safe, but Rindo lashes out, asking how all of them can just give up after being disrespected like that. Yuji admits they really don't have much of a choice with how hurt everyone is, but Rindo claims she's going to chase after Rosetsu alone. Before Yuji even has the chance to argue, Nobara interrupts and tells Rindo just to do what she wants. Standing on the same business she did from before, Nobara is more than willing to let Rindo throw her life away if she thinks that's what's right. But Nobara correctly calls Rindo out by mentioning that her hands are trembling, and if Rindo really meant what she said, she would have just gone ahead and done it instead of trying to talk big and staying here, putting Rindo in her place and getting her to shut up long enough for the group to return back to Oita. When they do get back, they discover that Principal Yaga has arrived himself to assist in the operation, the situation growing dire enough for him to be forced to leave Gojo in charge of Tokyo while he's gone. As the group get Yaga up to speed with their report, the mention of the name Rosetsu instantly catches Yaga's attention, and the principal asks the students if they were sure that's what the curse's name was. Realizing that this has grown into quite the crisis, Principal Yaga reveals he's actually quite familiar with the curse spirit known as Rosetsu. Yaga is just surprised that it would return after all of this time. Asking what the principal means by this, Yaga tells the students that Rosetsu is actually a special grade curse that was supposed to have been exorcised over 20 years ago by both Yaga and Nagino personally. With everyone in shock, Yaga takes this time to explain what he does know about Rosetsu's ability, Curse Technique Snatch, clarifying that Fushiguro's powers haven't necessarily been stolen, merely replicated at an almost 100% accuracy rate. Megumi can technically still use his abilities, however his cursed energy reserves are severely low due to acting similarly to a remote battery that is portably being drained by the vessel from afar. Megumi will remain in a constant state of weakness until Rosetsu either dispels the technique or they're able to defeat the vessel that holds all of Megumi's power. This puts the protagonist at a major disadvantage due to losing a key member of their combat force. Although Yaga says this could be turned into a benefit, as while Megumi and the cursed vessel remain connected, Fushiguro should be able to sense where it is at all times, giving the sorcerers a chance to prepare and plan an all-out operation on Rosetsu, instead of constantly being split up and taken advantage of like they have been. Meanwhile, in the infirmary, Kaito Yuki visits his comatose mentor, coming to terms with how weak he is in the face of a special grade curse. Despite his previous spark of motivation, Yuki admits the encounter with Rosetsu has left him terrified, scared that the next time they meet, it will mean the death of both him and and Nagino. But as Yuki pours out his fears, Rindo reveals that she's been listening to every word, making Yuki angry that she would eavesdrop on him like that. Rindo tells Yuki that if he's so scared, he should just quit, as even though she can't say there won't come a time where she'll lose or be afraid, she's never going to let that stand in the way of her being herself. Something that, again, makes Yuki think of Itadori Yuji, and how despite having every reason to give up, Yuji still continues to fight. So Yuki once again finds resolve through lessons that Yuji has taught him, changing his mind and telling Rindo that he's not going to give up either, because that's not what Jujutsu sorcerers do. Rindo agrees, and they both promise to end the battle with Rosetsu before their principal wakes up, ensuring all the problems in Kyushu are handled so he doesn't have to worry. Meanwhile, back at headquarters, Fushiguro is struggling to push himself and wants to join the operation against Rosetsu. Everyone is rightfully worried, but Megumi's not wrong in admitting that waiting around and resting isn't going to get him any better either. And surprisingly, a couple of familiar voices agree with him, as the Tokyo second years, Maki Zenin, Toge Inumaki, and Panda all enter the scene, revealing that they too have been requested to join the operation against Rosetsu, opting to help train Megumi and get him used to his new physical condition. Also back from the infirmary, Kato Yuki asks if he can join in on Maki's training, recognizing her as a cursed weapons expert and wanting the opportunity to learn directly under someone as strong as her, something that makes Maki excited, as she's more than happy to smack more willing first years into shape. Exhausted after their training session, Itadori makes the suggestion to Yuki and Megumi to head towards the hot spring and rejuvenate their stamina. Megumi and Yuki both agree to meet Yuji there after their report to Principal Yaga, as Yuji heads up to the mountain alone, thinking he'll have a spacious hot spring all to himself. However, upon entering the springs, Yuji discovers none other than his brother, Aoi Todo, already in attendance and waiting for Yuji to arrive, declaring that it has been a long time since he and Yuji have met, but that it's been an even longer time since they've been naked together. Yuji loudly announcing to anyone listening that they have literally never once been naked together. The conversation, if you can even call it that, gets derailed though, when suddenly Todo senses an enemy cursed energy nearby, telling his brother there's no time to catch up and they must spring into action. Todo sprints right into the forest with only a towel on, demanding Yuji follow, and while Itadori does indeed chase after Todo, he's screaming the entire time if they can at least stop to put clothes on before they go. By the time Yuji does catch up to Todo though, there isn't any time to mince words, as they discover the cursed energy was coming from one of Rosetsu's cursed minions. Unsure how it was able to get so close to the hot spring without setting off any alarms, Todo assumes the curse sacrificed its strength for better cursed energy concealment, as when the two sorcerers do catch and exorcise the minion, Yuji admits it was nothing like the previous ones he fought. However, the actual question was what was one of Rosetsu's minions doing stalking around the hot springs in the first place? The two sorcerers return to headquarters and report the attack, and while Yaga is grateful the students are safe, the principal is a little off-put with the fact Yuji neglected to wear clothes on official Jujutsu business. Obviously, Yuji is beyond embarrassed and tries to explain himself by saying that everything happened so fast there really wasn't any time to do so. From the sidelines, Todo joins Yaga in the criticism, claiming that as a sorcerer, Yuji should always be paying attention to the time and place. Itadori proceeds to also point out that Todo is naked as well. However, when Yuji turns around, he discovers Todo is somehow fully clothed. The grade 1 sorcerer literally gaslighting Yuji into acting like he wasn't the one that convinced Yuji to run into the night butt naked in the first place. Yaga asks if they can just move on, and Itadori shifts the conversation to if Todo is here to help in the operation. And originally, Todo wasn't going to help, actually only being in the same location as everyone due to a live concert of his favorite pop idol Takada being in the area. Todo was only able to get a ticket last minute, so he decided to abuse Japanese tax dollars by using Jujutsu headquarters as a place to stay. However, now seeing that his brother is in need of assistance, Todo is more than willing to join the operation against Rosetsu, as long as it doesn't conflict with the concert, of course. And finally, after taking multiple days to prepare, the Jujutsu students of Tokyo, Kyoto, and Fukuoka High all assemble at the bottom of a large mountain in Kyushu, the exact location Fushiguro tracked the cursed vessel he's connected to down. However, the entire landscape is polluted with cursed energy, and knowing Rosetsu, the place is probably infested with curses. Meaning, despite the plan originally being to stick together as one large fighting force, they might just have to play right into Rosetsu's hands and split up if they're to have any hope of actually finding him. With this knowledge, Yaga directs Megumi to form a team and search for the 10 Shadows curse specifically, claiming that if they can weaken Rosetsu's forces, they can make the operation easier for everyone. Meanwhile, everyone everyone else forms into teams specifically around people in their group that are optimal against Rosetsu. Those people being Miwa, Maki, Yuji, and Panda, the 4 students without an actual curse technique capable of being stolen. Sending the teams on their separate ways, Yaga explains that no group is to engage Rosetsu directly without first reaching out to Yaga and allowing him to confirm the special grade's identity. Once he does, Yaga says he'll be the one to personally exorcise Rosetsu. At the same time, deeper on in the mountain range, Rosetsu is happy to see that all of the sorcerers are in attendance, just as he predicted. However, it would seem this time Rosetsu is actually speaking with someone, asking if this person will be sticking around to watch all the fun. This person claims they can't be seen by anyone at Jujutsu High though, so they'll be taking their leave, revealing that the person Rosetsu is conspiring with to be Suguru Geto, or as we learn after the Shibuya incident, Noritoshi Kamo. But to make things easier, since it's not really a spoiler, we'll just call him Kenjaku. Rosetsu thanks Kenjaku for lending him something, telling the fake Geto that he'll be sure to make good use of it. He tells Geto he had better leave now if he doesn't want anyone to see, and the two go their separate ways. While he makes his exit, Kenjaku chuckles to himself, curious to see how tall a curse spirit that rules over a whole countryside can grow when given all the right nutrients and resources it needs to succeed. And that's the end of part 1, guys. Hit the like button and subscribe if you want to know what happens next, and part 2 will be out in the next couple of days.